Everybody, welcome to Tech and Tuesday, recorded March the 29th, 2011. This is episode number 321. We have our guest, Mr. SmartScarecrow, on the show. We're going to be talking about Microsoft Small Business Server today. So we're so glad you could join us. And if you're watching on Justin.tv, come over to live.frugalbrothers.com. That is where the chat room that we moderate is located. We'll remind you that we are having a contest on May the 31st to give away a brand new Apple iPod Touch 32 gigabyte model. And in order to win, this is what you must do. Number one, you must live within the United States, because we can only ship within the U.S. Number two, you must follow us on Justin.tv. Number three, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And finally, be here on the day of the drawing, May the 31st, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we will ask a question about the sponsor of this iPod Touch, Lifeboat Distribution. The first person who answers the question correctly will be declared the winner, and you will receive this beautiful Apple iPod Touch. I also want to remind everybody, we do a program on Sundays called Business Computing Weekly with my wife and co-host, the Queen of Links, my wife, Cindy. So don't make sure that you miss that on Sundays at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Mr. Scarecrow, you're back. And your video seems to be working now.
By George,
small
favors.
Your video has always been working. It's our ability to get the video, your video going. That's what got that one.
Well, everybody in the chat room has been blaming Ronnie Rucker. I think we should just go with them.
I can't blame Ronnie. We have a late 2006 iMac, Core 2 Duo with 3 gigs of memory, and it's been trying to run Wirecast, CamTwist, Audio Hijack Pro, iTunes, all at the same time, and as well as Desktop Presenter. And I think it's just too much for the old machine. And record to disk at the same time.
Wirecast by itself is a pretty demanding application. I don't know, man. That's a lot to ask of that poor old warhorse. But anyway, I guess we're gonna pick up on the Windows Small Business Server thing, huh?
Yes.
Now, does that mean I get to admit my glaring failures all over again, so you can include them in the recording?
If you want to, that's totally your option.
Well, I think I'll just cut to the chase so it does make it into the recording, because there are a couple of key elements on this small business server, mistakes that I personally have made that I would hope that others don't even try it with small business server. iSCSI is an advanced storage scenario that I truly like. I mean, I'm a big fan of iSCSI, but it does require multiple network adapters in the server. You have basically a separate IP address range that you assign to your iSCSI, and small business server only supports one network adapter. So if you promise a customer that you're going to give them a small business server that includes advanced storage, like maybe a SAN type scenario or an iSCSI box, it ain't going to work. So don't shoot yourself in the foot with that one. The other key issue is the branch office scenario, where you have a hierarchy of domains. Maybe you have a master Windows domain, and then you have sub Windows domains, and the network administrator can sit at his Star Trek Enterprise console and be able to manage all the domains from one master tree. That don't work when you deploy small business server. So if you've got an enterprise Windows server at the main office, and then at the branch offices you've installed small business servers, there is no way you can implement domain trusts when you're dealing with a small business server implementation. So those are the two big limitations where I have personally run into embarrassment trying to deploy these things out in the field. So the network engineer has to be aware of those limitations before they make promises that are going to wind up shooting them in the foot.
You know, I tell you, it's been my experience dealing with small business server. A lot of experienced IT. Number one, small business server. If you have an IT administrator in your business, they probably will not want this product. I would almost guarantee you, because when you set up like a domain in Windows Server 2008, you have very granular control and a very way that you learn to do things. With small business server, it's all about wizards to do everything. Follow the wizard, follow the wizard, follow the wizard. And if you want to go in and tinker with it like you would in ordinary Windows Server 2008, you can break small business server.
I was going to make that when you started on that thread, because that's another one I've done where I've tried to tweak user rights and authorities using the utilities that you would normally use with a Windows server.
Right.
And I tell you, if you don't manage that stuff via the wizard in small business server, you can break things.
You're going to break things real good, and that's very, very painful. But today's show is about Windows Small Business Server 2011, and just to recap, there's two editions, a standard edition and what's called the Essentials edition. With the standard edition, you can get what's called the premium add-on. I believe you can use it. You can with either the Essentials or the standard editions. Now, what's the premium add-on? It basically gives you another Windows Server 2008 R2 license with client access licenses that match your small business server licenses, and includes SQL Server 2008. And that's what comes with it. And what the reason you would want to do this, number one, the small business server is a busy machine anyway. You probably would not necessarily want to run SQL Server on top of everything else, but you could. I mean, you can, but it's not going to be the best experience, especially if you've got heavy-duty business applications and that kind of thing. Maybe you want to do some virtualization. You want to use Hyper-V, which comes at no additional cost with Windows Server 2008, right? Am I correct on this?
Standard edition.
The standard edition, right.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So you would get that as part of the deal. That's the standard edition. That's the premium add-on. And then finally, there's the Essentials edition. Let's talk about the Essentials edition real quick. And I think there was a question somewhere about the pricing on all this stuff, which I happen to have right here. What does it cost? Okay, so the Essentials edition is going to sell for $546, and that includes up to 25 users. Well, that's pretty big, don't you think, compared to the way standard edition is licensed?
It only comes with 5 cows. It supports
no, cows aren't even required. Cows aren't even required with the Essentials edition.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, there's no cows.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's a $540. No, it's $545, and you own it.
Okay, so you got your basic file and print and some user security, some authentication using Active Directory.
Yep.
But not a whole lot else.
Well, of course, the ability to back up all your local PCs, machines, to the small business server. See, that's kind of cool.
Which assumes that you've got a lot of storage capacity on
it does.
server.
It does. But you can pick up 2 terabyte drives for what, $80, $70 now?
Well, yeah, that's true. Hard drive storage is getting to be pretty darn cheap.
Real cheap. It also includes remote access. Okay. I don't know about the fax service. Let me take a look here.
I think that's part of the SharePoint package. And I think you only get that with the standard edition.
Let's take a look here. It just took, you click the link and it just takes you right back to where you were.
Gotta love Microsoft's websites.
You do. But here's the deal. The premise of the Essentials Edition is that you do the basic file. You do the basic print sharing. You have your domain set up, your security. But
okay, hey, Bruce, I am going to correct you. To get web hosting, Exchange, SharePoint, remote access, you do have to go the standard edition.
You do not get remote access with the Essential Edition?
Well, let's see. Remote access business applications. I'm not sure why they're qualifying that. What is an LOBS?
Line of business.
Cloud services. Line
of business cloud services is going to be hosted Exchange, hosted SharePoint.
Okay. Well, yeah. They do say remote access is part of the Essentials package, but there's no SharePoint.
No, it doesn't come with that stuff. The theory is this is what Microsoft is finding out, that a big part of the clientele for a small business server is eyeballing or wants hosted line of business applications. They're already pretty much living in the cloud, or they'd like to. That they don't want to be responsible for small business or for something like Exchange or SharePoint. But they do want these other features. They do want security. They do want an easy way to create user accounts. They do want a great way to manage centralized backups and storage. They do want to be able to access their computers remotely from the internet. They want all these features, but they don't want everything else. Thus, the Small Business Essentials, Server Essentials, is born. So there you have it.
So you do have a limit of 25 connections, but there's no requirement to buy the cows. That's actually, for a really, really small operator, that $550, that ain't too bad. Maybe I do have a client for that one. I keep thinking that I don't have a client for Essentials.
Okay.
I'm running through my head the clients that I have, and I've got a couple clients out there who do host their mail outside. Little operators, 5, 10.
Mm-hmm.
A very, very precious few of them. I still think, though, that the lion's share of my clientele, if they're going to be a player for small business server, my client is a little more demanding than that and does expect to manage their own mail system. I deal with a lot of law offices and small medical offices,
mm-hmm.
and particularly in the medical field, they've got these darn HIPAA requirements. So if you're dealing with insurance companies and medical offices, they've got a requirement to be able to archive their email, and they've got to be able to track down an email that they sent to a patient, 5 years ago, and they need to be able to meet these requirements to have their so-called HIPAA compliance. It's kind of the P's and Q's of that industry, and the only way they can assure them of being compliant is to manage that mail themselves. So yes, a lot of the clients I have are going to insist on that capability. They're not going to want to host that out.
Fair enough.
The other thing I've got, is I've got a lot of clients who, when Small Business Server first, I think the 2003 version of a Small Business Server, they really got into this SharePoint thing, and quite a few of them have actually spent money on developers to develop like in-house applications. So they have it's not a web server that they present to the world. It's a web server that they use internally for their local users. But they have their shared corporate calendar where everybody sets up their vacation time, and they have links to various standard documents and things like that available in a SharePoint repository. I do have quite a few clients who, say what you will about SharePoint. I'm not a big SharePoint fan, but a lot of my clients like it. They've spent money developing applications in SharePoint, and they'd be somewhat lost if they didn't have it.
Have you ever looked around at Google Sites?
I have, but you know what I think of Google, right?
Do tell. Do tell.
Well,
I don't want to hear. I do. I want to hear your opinion. The government.
Yeah. Google,
Right.
Google knows way too much about my business for me to be comfortable, and I'm not sure I want to support them in knowing anymore.
Okay. Well,
So
that's
I
you,
stay
but
about
I
as
mean,
far away from
I
Google
get
as
that.
I
I mean,
can.
I understand that's you, but Google Sites is free. You can get Google Apps for your domain for free for up to 50 users. Okay, you're getting the hosted email, but you're getting Google Sites, which, in a way, especially if they like Office, I'm not trying to begrudge you the point on SharePoint. I get that. But you can give them very much a SharePoint-like experience. They can still work in Microsoft Office, use Word and Excel. They can get the free Google Cloud Connect, which installs a toolbar and Word and Excel. And they can save their documents right to Google in their Google Docs. They can collaborate in real time through Google Docs. Version and control, that is supported. No addition, and this we're talking free. You can integrate that with Google Sites and give them very much a SharePoint experience at no cost, other than services. If you were to do that for them, set it up for them.
But to use such a thing, you would have to trust Google to be a good shepherd of your data.
But okay, all right, okay. No, you do.
So if you had the policy and procedures manual that you spent $10,000 with an attorney to have developed, and you hung that out on the cloud somewhere, and all of a sudden you found links to it all over the internet, you spent $10,000 having your policy and procedure manual prepared, and now everybody in the universe is using it. You might become a little concerned. So it's really a matter of trust. I mean, bottom line is if you trust Google and you're sure that they will be a good shepherd of your private business data, I might investigate something like that. But maybe a lot of the people I deal with are just paranoid. I don't know.
I don't know. That's not. I don't think that's fair. I think that at the end of the day, what you're basically saying is security.
Yeah, it really is
Okay.
a matter of security. And small business people that I know, they're tough nuts. Okay, I mean, being a small businessman today is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And just because you might be a little bit paranoid doesn't mean there's not somebody out there who might be trying to take a shot at you. So I can't say as I blame them. But to a lot of my customers, I just had this discussion with a small real estate property management firm recently. Mm-hmm. The guy was thinking seriously about going a hosted cash register application. Every small business has some application that's their cash register. Every time they make an entry in that one, cha-ching, the dollars come in.
Right.
And most of them, it's some vertical market application that's unique to their industry. And in the property management industry, a lot of the development work is going into putting these cash register applications out in the cloud. And when this client came to me and said, hey, this application that we've been using for about 10 years is getting kind of old. It hasn't been updated in a long time. We'd like you to check it out for us, see what's out there that might be cool. I spent, about 2 weeks looking at just about everything out there I could find that was unique to his industry that I thought might do the job. And I came back to him with 3 recommendations. 2 of them would put his application out in the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, the one I was going to recommend to him rode on the cloud. It seemed to be the most modern, most up-to-date, slickest package for his industry that was currently available. And the pricing on it seemed very reasonable. And I went to him and I said, well, here's my picks, 1, 2, and 3. And number 1 was a cloud application. Would have put his cash register out in the cloud.
Right.
And man, he nixed that so fast. So, it's not just me that's paranoid. A lot of the, matter of fact, I think I probably get it from my clients. A lot of my clients just would not even consider putting their private data, their critical business information anywhere out on the internet. They want it right where they can touch it, right where they can hold it, right where they can hug it. For all I know, they take it to bed with them at night. I just don't know.
Well, you can still do that with the essential version of Small Business Server. What you wouldn't be able to do is, well, it doesn't come with Exchange Server. Probably couldn't even, get a copy and install it on there. It probably wouldn't even allow you to do it. Well, I know it wouldn't, and here's why. Because,
Active Directory.
Well, yeah, exactly. You don't get the same type of security and group policies. I mean, you do with it, but what's the best way to explain it? We have to go back and revisit Windows Home Server. Windows Small Business Server Essentials is derived from the Veil tree of Windows Server, which is Windows Home Server, Windows Small Business Essentials, and Windows Storage Server. Those are all in the Veil line. And basically, a lot of people were taking Windows Home Server and using it as basically Windows Small Business Essential. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Yeah,
but
I can imagine.
A lot of people were basically using it in this capacity anyway. Why? It's brain dead simple to add users. It's brain dead simple to back up your local PCs. Plays nice with Macs for backup. Gives you remote access. But then they add a lot of media stuff on there that a lot of small businesses would not use or not use a lot of. Right? Mm-hmm. They wouldn't do that. So people were already using Windows Home Server in that capacity anyway. So that's why they introduced, and when they took it a step further and they came out with Windows Small Business Server Essentials, with the theory that you would host your email like with Office 365, the Microsoft online product that's in beta currently.
Which is basically their answer to the Google.
Yeah, exactly, is what it is. Although it's going to cost a buttload more money. And by the way, that guess what? You're facing the same question about security, whether it's Google or Microsoft. Are you not?
Exactly. I mean, frankly, if you're gonna put your business out on the internet, you've got to have 100% trust in the vendor you're going to put that stuff with. I mean, if you trust Google, if you think they're a bunch of good guys who would never try to profit from your secret business information, if you trust Microsoft that same way, then it's certainly an avenue that should be considered. But it is a matter of trust. And
that's That's exactly what it boils down to. Is all about trust. But if trust is an issue, that's why there's Small Business Server Standard Edition, right?
Exactly.
There you go.
And frankly, I think that's the one that, if I have a client for Small Business Server, I suspect that's the one they're probably going to want.
Let's talk about the price of that. Small Business Server Standard Edition, available today, is $1,096. Includes a 5-pack of the client access licenses. And then you configure the cows for that. Around about $100 a pop.
Yeah, let's see
Ballpark.
here. Well, if you buy them in a 20-pack, it's $1,800. So yeah,
About $100 a pop. So a 10 user, you're gonna basically is another 500. So you'd be about $1,600 for a 10 user setup with Small Business Server Standard Edition.
and
That's just the software.
Yeah, one thing I've run into is that Small Business Server does require a pretty healthy piece of hardware. I mean, if you were just going to do your basic 2008 server and you weren't going to load it up with a whole bunch of services, you could get by with a fairly modest server. I mean, if you were setting 2008 up for just to be a web server, for example, you could get by with a dual core CPU running at a medium megahertz. It doesn't have to be anything real whiz bang fancy. But now this little Small Business Server, mainly because of the number of services they run on a single machine, you do need a pretty healthy CPU. And if you're going to play with some of the fancy stuff like the Hyper-V virtualization and that kind of stuff, you need not only a fairly robust CPU, but you also need scads of memory. 24 gigabytes of RAM starts to become a kind of a mediocre starting point. But it really depends on, this is something that, a lot of people don't seem to realize is when you try to put 10 pounds of poo-poo in a 5-pound bag, you're going to need a bag with some extenders.
Here's where things get kind of weird, though, is when you want to go after this premium add-on. Because you're going to pay the $1,100 for the Small Business Server Standard Edition, and then you're going to pay $1,604 for the add-on.
Yeah.
Okay. Guess
now, what does that get you?
The add-on gets you, and guess what? You've got premium add-on cow licenses. So, my understanding is correctly, if I have 10 users, a 10-user network, because I haven't seen too many shops with 3 or 4 people, using Small Business Server. They're normally doing a
little peer-to-peer
type of thing anyway. I'm going to need the $1,096 to get me the 5 cows. I'm going to need at least another 5-pack. That's $361 more. I'm going to need $1,604 to buy the premium add-on if that's the route I'm going to go. And the premium 5-pack for the add-ons, for the premium add-ons rather, is another $457. So I'm about $3,500 in just server licensing for a 10-user network. $3,500, not including the hardware, or paying a technician to set it up.
Yep.
That's a lot of money. Now you know why Microsoft's a $20 billion a quarter company, right?
Well, yeah, and the premium add-on, if I understand it correctly, you got to have the premium add-on if you're going to do SQL. Period. Now, I think there's, I think it requires the premium to get the Hyper-V stuff too. I don't think standard does Hyper-V without the add-on. So if you want to do the virtualization thing, and virtualization's become, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it. I mean, I've implemented it because clients have demanded it, but I still have my reservations. But if you want to be able to run more than one copy of Windows on a single piece of hardware, you need this Hyper-V thing. And my understanding is that to get the Hyper-V, you got to do the premium add-on. So, $3,500. Yeah, but, you do get a lot of toys for the money if you sit down and try and price all these things out. And I think if I was the Microsoft guy and I was arguing that this is a great value, I'd come out and I'd say, well, yeah, but gee, if you bought the Enterprise Edition of the server, you'd have to spend $1,500 on that, And if you wanted Exchange, you'd have to spend $2,500 on that. If you wanted SQL, you'd have to spend $2,100 on that. So really, because we're bundling all this together for you as a small business server package, you're really getting all those services for such a big discount.
This is really, I see it as a pretty good size price increase from Windows Server 2008 Premium Edition.
Oh, I agree.
Okay. And
I agree.
And here's what I'm thinking. I think that Microsoft is conspiring to make the pricing less attractive to go this route and push people more and more into something like Office 365. And they've coming out with Azure, which is a cloud-based version of SQL Server and a developer platform. You'll be able to host your line of business apps on a cloud-based version of SQL Server. And I think Microsoft is deliberately pushing the very small business guys to the Essential Edition by just pricing this thing out of their budget.
I can tell you that the 2011 pricing is almost a third stronger than where we were doing it with the 2008 version. So it is a substantial increase in price. But I think I would have to, again, I'd have to sit down and look what the my client is either going to use the Enterprise Edition of Windows, put 3 pieces of hardware in a rack, and have one server be their Active Domains machine. One of them's going to be their SharePoint machine. One of them's going to be their SQL or their Exchange server or whatever.
Right.
And their option is to try and put all those services in one box under Small Business Server. There is still a significant cost client to go with the Small Business Server. My client, cloud computing, is out. They're not even going to discuss it. I'll put it on the table as an option, as a possibility. They will immediately put that in the trash can and insist on other options. It's either going to be an enterprise system with multiple means to support the multiple services that they plan on running, or it's going to be 10 pounds of poo-poo in a 5-pound bag with Small Business Server, and the price performance still puts Small Business Server in the game, even though I agree with you, it's a dramatic increase.
It is.
Over where 2008 was, and I think somebody ought to take the marketing manager at Microsoft out behind the woodshed and give him a good whipping.
But just to reiterate, with the premium add-on, right, you cannot run the Hyper-V on you are precluded from running it on the standard edition of Small Business Server. They just won't let you do that. You also get, you do not have remote desktop services. So when you get the add-on pack or the premium pack, you get that. Plus you can have an additional domain controller. Yay! There's something new.
Well, now you could do that with Small Business Server 2003. If you bought a separate license to Windows 2003 Standard, I think it was called. You could have your small business 2003 server sitting here, and then you could have a separate Windows 2003 standard server and have it be a secondary domain controller. It could not.
Right.
It had to be a secondary domain controller.
Right. A backup
on the domain
controller
that was controlled by a Small Business
Right.
server.
As backup domain controller. Right.
Right.
You could do that. But just as soon as you cannot join Small Business Server to an existing domain.
That's correct.
No.
And you could not set up a trust relationship between two Small Business Server domains. So if you had Small Business Server A and Small Business Server B, and you wanted to set up a trust relationship so that users who are authenticated by Small business server A could access resources on small business server B. Even that was precluded. The only way you could do it would be to do the RDP remote access type scenario. You couldn't map a drive from one network into the other.
Here, but there's something else here. You can use it for branch deployments and other standalone uses. What do you think that means?
I don't know, man. You got me.
Other standalone uses. I guess, yeah, I see small business. Here's what I see, in my opinion. If you have very security conscious people who do not trust Microsoft, doesn't trust Google, and I think in reality there's no reason. Matter of fact, I'd say your data is just as safe as if it was on premises on the Google servers or Microsoft. I do. I think they have to meet some very serious security requirements. Google for Government, LA's, they've got multiple cities now hosting with Google. Multinational corporations are using Google. They've obviously put their time, money, and research into checking and testing the security of Google. Microsoft, same way. I truly believe, Scarecrow, that the whole security thing, I just don't see that as a big risk anymore. I think Google has been very well checked out. They have military grade security. U.S. government is using them now. Department of Agriculture is going Google Apps. USDA is going, or no, they're going Microsoft. It's another government department is going Google. I would think the U.S. government has done some checking on the security of both Microsoft and Google services in the cloud. And I would think that, if you look at all the specifications they have for their security, I think you'd be quite impressed. In fact, the security is going to be much tighter there than a lot of mom and pop, businesses out there. A lot more secure.
You're probably right, but here's another scare scenario. Okay. Today Google will do all this good stuff for you for free if you're 50 users or less?
Yeah, on the free edition, right.
Okay, so say you go ahead and sign up and you get dependent. And you've been with them for a couple of years, and Google decides that this free service that they've been providing for a long time needs to become a source of revenue. And they come back at you and they say, okay, well, hey, we've been giving this to you for free for a couple of years now, but we can't afford to do it for free anymore. We're going to need a modest contribution. We'd like to have, $5 a head per, $5 a seat per month or something like that. And the small business guy thinks about it for a little while and he says, well, it's worth it to me. I'll go ahead and spring for the $5 per seat per month to keep my apps with Google. Because it's just too much of a pain in the butt to change now. And the marriage goes on for maybe another year or so, and seems like almost every month that monthly price starts going up and up and up. Now, the reason I mention this is because I remember back in the day when Google was new and the internet was brand new. Keep in mind, I've been around that long. I actually remember, 2 tin cups and a string, pre-internet. I remember these things
would be called
modems and BBSs, so.
The Flintstone net.
Yeah, I go back a little way. So,
right.
I remember when, Google as a search engine was brand new.
Right.
And this was, whiz-bang stuff, this thing is just so much slicker than Archie. Nobody even knows what Archie is anymore.
Oh, wow, that's a old web deal. We won't go there. Okay.
Yeah, we won't go there. We get into a 20-minute discussion.
Yeah, right. That's a term I have not heard in decade.
Yeah, but nowadays, the only way you get on the first page of a search is if you pay Google tons of dough. I've got customers that are paying off Google $2,500 every month for search placement, so that when somebody does a search on keyword terms, their business comes up on the first page. They pay Google a ton of dough for that. Now, that right now is Google's business model. That's how they're making their money.
Right.
A lot of small businesses, it's a legitimate advertising expense, and I guess they feel it's justified, or they wouldn't pay the money.
Right.
So why am I suspicious of trusting Google to take my data and do this nice thing for me for free? Because, I've been around for a while. I know for a fact there ain't no free lunch, and that eventually, the piper's going to need to be paid. And once you're hooked, once you've done the business, it's pretty costly to change. So all of a sudden, just about any price that they might ask starts to become attractive.
Right.
It's like the drug dealer getting you hooked with those free samples, and then all of a sudden the price goes through the roof. So that's what scares me about this, these services like what Google's offering. I just don't know that I would want to have that as part of my business plan. But I'm a skeptic. I wear a tinfoil hat.
All right. You know what?
You were very patient to hear my argument on that, Bruce. I know you disagree.
No,
and frankly, you should have an opportunity to give the rebuttal.
Well, actually, I'm running out of time. Because we had to do a second take of the show due to technical issues. You were a real sport, Mr. Scarecrow. I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I know you got stuff that you need to get done. I always like to give everybody a last word. Tell everybody about your show, what time it's on, where they can find you.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I'm taking a little hiatus. I'm taking a couple weeks off, but yeah, I do a weekly presentation on Justin TV. It's easily found at justin.tv/SmartScarecrow. And the show features news items of the day, and usually we feature an alternative energy product or a person that's of note. It is a show that features alternative energy topics, and it's a lot of fun. Typically, we do a show every Thursday at 9 o'clock, but my next broadcast is not going to be until April 14th. I'm taking a little vacation. In any case, Bruce, I appreciate you having me on your show. It was a lot of fun, and I hope we put information on the table that your audience will find of interest. I hope we discuss stuff that that they find was timely information.
Well, I mean, we are a small business technology show, so I think this is pretty pertinent. I do.
But I still think you should have had an opportunity to give your rebuttal, because I know you like this cloud stuff, and you should have an opportunity to shoot me in the butt.
I'll make it brief. I'll make it brief. No, I totally get that there's always going to be people that either because of regulation, HIPAA, for example, whatever, will steer away from the cloud. There's always going to be a group that wear the tinfoil hats, as you call them, and will not trust their data anywhere else. I get that as well. I do see that there will be a group of people who will realize that the cost savings of hosting things like their email, creating documents, collaborating with documents on the cloud. There is a tremendous cost savings there. You don't have to worry about backup as much. You don't have to worry about hardware. You don't have to worry about paying people to come in and set this stuff up, patches, updates. Exchange Server is great. It's wonderful. But when they do go bad, when they do screw up, it's going to cost you a whole lot. And those are just some of the arguments. The ability to access your email through multiple clients. Because maybe Exchange works with Outlook and to a lesser degree Apple Mail. That's about it. Where when you're using, and I'm talking about all the functionality of Exchange requires Outlook It really does.
Well, it requires Active Directory integration.
Well, and not only that, but yeah, of course, Active Directory integration, all that. When you go with the cloud, it gives you total freedom over operating system, licensing, and security is first class. It's a different way to go, and I think more and more people are in what we call SaaS, that's software as a service. We're seeing it more and more. That's my quick rebuttal, and I got to wrap this up. Thank you so much for coming on today, Mr. Scarecrow.
Always a pleasure, and I'm glad we got both arguments out there because people need to hear both sides of the argument.
Both sides of the argument. All right. Thank you, sir. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for stopping by, and we'll be back again on Sunday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Thank you.